You remember the silence. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that slams doors or raises voices. But the quiet that stings. The space between what you hoped someone would say and what they didn't. The time you walked into a room and no one turned. The message left on read. The laughter that continued even after you arrived. No harm done, they'd say. But something in you folded. Again, it wasn't rage. It wasn't betrayal. It was the slow ache of being forgettable. Of realizing you weren't on anyone's mind. Of learning that presence does not guarantee being felt. Where are you watching from? Because if you've ever been in a room full of people and still felt invisible, this is yours. Not for pity, for understanding. The pain of silent rejection doesn't leave scars you can see, but it leaves echoes. In the way you hesitate before speaking. In the way you rehearse texts before sending them. In the way you watch others for signs they actually want you there. It teaches you early that inclusion is conditional. That belonging is a privilege you have to earn by being pleasant. Easy. Small. This wasn't overreacting. This was your nervous system clocking a threat. Micro-rejections are real. Tiny social ruptures that, over time, teach your body to stay half-present. Just in case. And that taught you something big. Being quiet keeps you safe. Being unseen hurts less than being dismissed. But even safety can feel like a cage. So you learn how to shrink. Not your dreams. Your presence. You sat at the edge of conversations. You laughed a second late, just to be sure the joke was safe. You spoke in low tones so no one would accuse you of interrupting. You became the kind of person who everyone liked, but no one remembered. And that's the hidden pain of silent rejection. It doesn't break you in one moment. It breaks you in the accumulation of moments where you weren't seen. Not because you were invisible, but because people only looked where they expected light. And you learned to dim yours before they could look away. This kind of pain doesn't show up in obvious ways. It shows up in the way you triple-check your text tone. In the way you always ask, is now a good time? In the way you say it's fine, even when it's not, because you don't want to risk being too much. You avoid asking twice. You fear being annoying. You assume silence means you've done something wrong, even if there's no proof. Has that ever felt true for you? There's a psychological pattern here. Rejection sensitivity. It's not weakness. It's a response to subtle but repeated cues of exclusion. Your brain wires itself to anticipate social pain before it can hurt again. So you monitor. You adjust. You smile when you want to cry. Because crying in the presence of absence once felt worse than holding it in. You didn't make this up. You lived it. In classrooms. In group chats. In friendships where you always showed up, but rarely got a call back. You weren't too sensitive. You were deeply attuned to a pattern others were allowed to ignore. And now, years later, you still carry it. Not in obvious ways, but in quiet habits that no one questions. You say no worries when it actually did hurt. You don't ask for help unless it's urgent. You celebrate your wins in silence, because you're not sure anyone would clap anyway. You've become self-contained, independent, low maintenance, the kind of person people admire for their strength, but rarely check in on. And maybe you've started to believe that this is just who you are. That maybe you're not the chosen type. That connection is for people louder, softer, easier to love. But here's the truth. You didn't stop needing people. You just stopped expecting them to stay. This kind of emotional conditioning doesn't fade easily. When your body associates closeness with exclusion, even kindness can feel suspicious. You might hear, "I'm here for you," and brace for when they're not. You might downplay your feelings so no one gets uncomfortable. You might feel guilty for wanting to be invited without asking. You might crave recognition, then flinch when you get it. Because praise without presence feels like a tease. Because inclusion, when you're not sure it's real, feels like a setup. So you learn to live with the quiet ache. You tell yourself it's better not to expect too much. You learn to pour into others and call it love. But deep down, you wonder what it would feel like to be seen, without having to earn it. That wondering, that's the part of you that still believes, still hopes, still remembers what it's like to long for belonging and not be met. And that hope, as fragile as it feels, is a sign you haven't given up. Not fully. So let's begin there. With that hope, that quiet flicker inside you that still wants to be chosen without shrinking, still wants to be understood without over-explaining. Because even if the world taught you to expect absence, your body never stopped craving presence. And you're allowed to want that. Even now, Let's bring in a few gentle ways to start healing the echo of silent rejection. Not all at once, just in small, steady ways. First, when someone offers care, don't deflect. Don't say, "I'm fine," out of habit. Say what's true in one extra sentence. Let yourself take up just a little more space than you're used to. See what happens. Second, notice when you assume you're being left out. Pause. Ask yourself, is this about now, or is this about then? Because often, your body is reacting to a memory your mind hasn't fully processed. Bring compassion to that reaction, not correction. Third, write this down. I am not invisible. I am unfolding. Keep it where you can see it. On your phone, your mirror, your notebook. Because you're not just surviving anymore. You're learning how to re-enter rooms with your full self intact. You were never hard to love. You were just often around people who weren't able to love fully. That's not the same thing. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to see that too. That it wasn't your silence that kept people away. It was their blindness to your presence. Now, you get to see yourself again. And that seeing, that self-witnessing, is the beginning of repair. You're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be felt. Not for what you offer. Not for how small you can make your needs. But simply because you exist. That truth, it might feel foreign, uncomfortable, even unearned. But healing starts when you stop trying to deserve visibility and begin to inhabit it. There's something symbolic about this too. That the child in you who stood at the edge of the group still waits. Still listens for your name. Still wonders if anyone will notice you were never invited into the center. And maybe they didn't. But now, you can. You can be the one who walks back across the field. Who reaches out for that younger self and says, "You didn't imagine it. You were left out. And that wasn't your fault. Because what happened was real. But it didn't define your worth. It defined what needed healing." So if this felt like your story, if you've ever felt quietly erased in the presence of others, write one word below. The word you needed to hear when silence wrapped around your name. And if you know someone like this, someone strong, but always on the sidelines, share this with them. Let it land softly. Let it remind them, they are not forgotten. You were never invisible. You were just unseen by people who hadn't yet learned how to look. But you're learning how to look inward now. And that gaze, that steady, kind seeing, that's where the healing begins.